Okay, this is DSC Sport, and we're gonna do a little bit of explanation of dyno testing a factory Ford Focus RS damper, which we have right here. This is the factory Ford Focus damper, front damper. This is a McPherson type strut. All the loading is really going through the guide assembly here. This is, if we take this apart, this is roughly a 22 millimeter piston rod coming out of here, and really all the load is really being generated in that guide area. This shock is a shock that is a pretty simple and basic damper. If you take a look at the curves right here, these are what's called as a PVP graph. So what I'm doing is I'm showing you on the dyno run. This black depicts the factory shock that comes on the Ford Focus. This is your rebound range. And this is roughly like 300 foot-pounds of force that it puts into the piston rod at 2 inches per second, okay? And you basically only have two curves. So in this one, you have the current turned off, and on this at roughly 0.5 to 0.8 milliamps, the valving turns on. And that's your only two operating ranges, and that's the reason that the car just happens to ride just so terribly, is because look at these sharp low-speed noses, especially here. Whenever the car turns into the performance mode, when you put some current to it, that is unbelievable amount of force into the piston rod at 2 inches per second, and that's why the car is so horribly jarring. So anytime, even out of the sport mode, it'll still go into this area, and that's the reason for the terrible ride. What we've done with the Tractive damper, this is a damper that features a 43 millimeter OD precision ground tube. This is running inside of a guide. The bend allowance is the same for both top and bottom tubes, so there's literally no friction involved here, or way less, we call it stiction, than the stock one. You can handle much more G-load. In our GT3 cars, we can generate 2 Gs, no problem, through this type of design. Through a standard 22 millimeter, you're lucky to get up to 1.3 Gs, and that's with racing type damper. This damper is fully adjustable from 500 to 2000 milliamps. So let me show you on the graph here of what you're really looking at. So right here, these two dotted lines, that is depicting right now when you have this in the soft mode at 1800 milliamps. So if I go back really to here, and I really just change this color just to give you a little more basics here, I can change it to a blue. Blue will denote right now the soft. So you can see, look how much nicer this is. It's like driving a nice car, so you can have a nice spring rate to really hold the car up, and you don't have to have a horrible ride. And that's at one setting. When you go to the next setting, which is right here, the next line, okay, and we can depict that in blue as well to show you. And you can see now, if you just turn up like 200 milliamps, you start to pick up the valving a little bit. You can see the high speed coming in, give you plenty of hydraulic effect. You don't want much in the low speed area because it upsets the car. The next is going to be the 1.6 milliamp area, and if I turn that to blue so you can see it, there it goes. Now you can see the high speed range picking up, so from 4 inches per second up, you can see how it picks up. And if we went past 10 inches per second, you can see it would cross. It's already exceeding the factory race one at 8 inches per second or 9 inches per second, which is what you really want in this car. You don't want a lot of low speed, but you want a tremendous amount of high speed to hold the car up, especially in the rebound. It really makes the car loose on entry. The next is 1.2 amps. Now you got to remember, with the DSC controller, you have infinite control. You can go 1.035 milliamps to, you get any number. It interpolates in between. You can see how the low speed's starting to pick up here in the compression side, and look at how nice it is to the rebound side. Now you're going to start to put more preload into the shim pack right now. And there you go. There's your low-speed nose when you're really leaning on the car hard on the way into the corner. You got enough compression as you're really rolling that left rear in a right-hand turn. You're really loading that left rear tire, and you got enough high-speed rebound in order to slow the roll of the car down, but without all the low-speed control, which you get over a standard production type of piston. You don't get this loose feeling of the car. The car doesn't loosen up. Then when you get to a really firmer setting, which is the 0.8, I'll depict it again with the blue line. You can see that it even comes in a little stiffer. The high-speed characteristics are the same. It puts a little more low speed for really, there's strategies in which we use a lot of low speed in the back end of the compression, but you'll see it's nicer on the rebound side, and you really don't pick up the nose until you get to 4 inch per second, which is lovely. The driver typically drives between 1 and 2 inch per second right here. This is where the driver drives, right here. That's all the grip in the tire. Then the next is the medium speed range, which really goes from 2 to 4 inch per second, okay? And you don't get so much time in the medium speed. And then high speed is considered 4 to 6 for a closed roof car, like a a non-open wheel car, like a GT car. So this would be considered high speed area. And then when you're going for curbing, of course, you're into 10 inch per second. We dyno our shocks, and we build them up to 20 inch per second because we've got a 5 horsepower machine. But this gives you a little education on the shock absorber and what is really possible with the DSC controller and the Tractive shock. Now, that being said, really quick, if you go back to the factory 2 curves right here, you will find that the factory always switches you in to the stiff setting, and that's why the ride is so bad. So even if you only want to get the DSC controller, when you're in, whether you're in sport or you're in the touring version, or whether you're in the track mode, you always start out in the softer, and then as you start to load up the G load, we step it up in this area and it interpolates. So you really get kind of a fake nice riding car that has the higher speed characteristics of the race without all the nose. And the nose is what kills the performance in the ride. And that's how you can improve your performance in your ride with just a DSC controller. But my gosh, knowing that you have this type of latitude and range, I mean, you just aren't going to beat our RT shock set for the Ford Focus RS.